結局軍人になったの。
Whoa, look at him.
やはりまだお前に炎の錬金術は早いな。
A young Roy
ま
Mustang.
だですか。
Sir.
軍の犬になり下がるようなやつには基礎を教えることですがもったいないわ。
Some kind of mentor.
錬金術は大衆のためですか。
You see, from a really early.
先生、周辺諸国の脅威にさらされている今、軍の強化こそが急務です。国民を守るために錬金術は。
そんな言い訳は聞
Sure,
き
yeah,
飽きた。
this man has been there, seen some things.
先生ほどの方がこんな極貧にあえいでいるなんて。国家資格を取ってください。
Sounds like a man of principle.
そうすれば
Someone making
さ
a
らなる研
stance.
究が。
研究はとうの昔に完成している。
なんですって。
錬金術師は生きている限り真理を追い求めずにはいられない生き物だ。考えることをやめたとき錬金術師は死ぬ。私はとうの昔に死んで。
Whoa.
先生、ホークアイ先生。
Hawkeye.
娘を
Oh my god.
私の研究はすべて
All of my research, eh?
娘が。
Oh wow. Oh. Wow, that is some cold open. Oh, great shot.
すみません。何から何までお世
Young
話になってしまっ
Hawkeye.
て。
それでもこの国の礎の一つとなってみんなをこの手で守ることができれば幸せだと思っているよ。
Yeah.
いや、青臭い夢を話してしま
No,
った。
I think, yeah.
いいえ、素晴らしい夢だと思います。父の夢を
Oh.
託していい
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a great transition coming up then. Oh. Anytime that audio effect kind of kicks in. Oh, the research. Right? That might come into that might come into play, right?
ごめんなさいね。
スカーがウィンリーの両親の仇だったんだ。あの時心底嫌だって思ったんだ。急に銃が怖いものに見えてさ。ほんとダメだ。あいつのこと少しも分かってなかった。
生きて帰ってこれたからこその悩みね。でも生き延びなきゃダメよ。大切な人のためにも。
She knows all about that, right?
守ってあげてね。
And the other alchemists as well.
大好き
State
なんでしょ
alchemists.
ウィンリーちゃんのこと。
注意はさ、重荷に思ったことない。
Oh, I'm
重
sure.
いとか軽いとか今さら言う資格私にはないもの。過去に人の命をたくさん奪ってるから。そしてこの道を行くって決めたのも自分だから。
イシュバールの話聞いていいかな。
話してもらおう。
So I'm about to get a few different perspectives
お
here
前たちが
then.
何をしたか。
It's a good approach. Good approach.
イシュバールは岩と砂だらけの厳しい土地。そんな土地だから戒律の厳しい宗教と強靭な民族が生まれたのは無理からぬことでしょうね。一発の銃弾により不満は怒りとなって
Ah,
イ
now
シュバール
Ed
全
can
域
also
に
kind of share
広
some
がったの。
information, right?
大総統令3066号
That's the one, eh?
イシュバール殲滅戦の開始を告げた。その紙切れが
Even the look of this is like that old footage, that the real life old footage that all of us have seen. Kimberly. Oh god.
空気は腐臭と硝煙の匂いで満ち、砂は流れた血で重く湿ったわ。
Wow, Ed. Oh.
普通の兵士なら弾を乱射してその一発が偶然人の命を奪うこともある。でも狙撃は違う。
Yeah, snipers.
引き
It's
金を引けば
deliberate.
必ず人が死ぬ。原因と結果
You're
が
in control.
これほど明確に結びついているのは狙撃兵
Jeez.
と
Wow. Wow. I have goosebumps right now. This is. Oh. Armstrong. Damn.
目つき変わっちまったな。
Yeah, look at those eyes, man. Look at the bags and.
そういうお前もな、人殺しの目だ。
ああ、
Yeah.
士官学校でこの国の未来についてみんなで語り合ったっけな。
ああ、美しい未来をな。
Wow. Riza.
なんだ。
俺の美しい未来さ、グレキシアって言うんだ。セントラルでずっと俺の帰りを待っててくれてる。これで明日まで生きていけるんだ。
うん。
この手紙だけが
Mm.
明日を夢見させてくれるんだ。
Wow.
いつ終わるともしれないこの戦場で。
苦労して制圧して何が残る。やっぱり砂だけじゃないか。
お久しぶりです。マスタ
Oh,
ング
she's
少
got the
佐。
same.
覚えておいでですか。
なんてことだ。この人も人殺しの目になってしまった。
国民を守るべき軍人がなぜ国民を殺しているのですか。
Okay.
人に幸福をもたらすべき錬金術がなぜ人殺しに使われているのですか。
それが国家錬金術師の仕事だからです。なぜ国民を守るべき軍人が国民を殺すのか。
Oh.
それが兵士に与えられた任務だからです。
Okay.
私はいやいややっている。そういう顔です。
Yeah.
相手を倒した時、当たった、よしと自分の腕にうぬぼれ、仕事の達成感を感じる瞬間が全くないと言い切れますか。狙撃手さん。
Sniper. He knows all about the nature of being a sniper, right?
戦場はそもそも敵を殺す場所です。その覚悟もなしに軍服を着たのですか。
Ooh. Sometimes you need people like Kimberly.
死から目を背けるな、前を見ろ。あなたが殺す人々のその姿を正面から見ろ。そして忘れるな。敵もあなたのことを忘れない。
Whoa. I knew I liked Kimberly, man. Listen, I'm not saying he's a good person, but as a character, he just got really interesting. Even more interesting. Okay.
簡単だ。死にたくねえ。ただそれだけだ。理由はいつだって単純だよ。
ではこの戦いの理由は何だ。
理由。
Oh, that's a great transition.
恐ろしい理由は。
Oh. Okay, now this perspective. Oh. Yeah. Fifth lab? No, they must have multiples, right? They did have. Oh, okay. It's certainly the Philosopher's Stone. Wow.
その石をどうした。ゾルフ・J・キンボリー少佐。グレンの錬金術師の手に。
Jeez.
長い黒髪を束ねた。
That's why he was so
冷たい目の男が。
devastatingly effective.
戦局がたった一つの石で変わった。
How about that?
いい音だ。体の底に響く
Chills
実
right now.
にいい音だ。脊髄が悲しく踊り、鼓膜が歓喜に震える。それも常に死と隣り合わせのこの地で感じることのできる喜び。なんと充実した仕事か。
Yeah, I'm chilled right now. The sword.
いい音だ。素晴らしい。賢者の石。
石原教の大僧正ローグローが同胞のために大総統の前に立ったの。
Is that gonna make any difference at all?
一人の命はそのもの一人分の価値しかなく、
He also has a
それ
different
以上に
perspective
も
on
そ
that
れ
as
以
well,
下に
right?
もならん。替えは期間、殲滅もやめん。
この人でなしが神の
He
鉄
uses
が下るぞ。
reaction.
神とは、所詮人間によって作り上げられた人の手によるものに過ぎん。私に鉄槌を下した
Do it yourself.
神の手など借りず、自らの手で
Oh,
行
wow.
い人間。
Oh, I like that too. The coffee level is kind of dropping.
一人の力などたかが知れている。
But together?
ならば私は自分で守れるだけ。
Oh, look at this.
ほんのわずかでいい。大切なものを守ろう。下のものがさらに下のものを守る。
Numbers.
小さな人間なりにそれくらいはできる
Love
はずだ。
that. Love that animation there.
錬金術が言う通りこの世の断りが10日交換ならば 新しく生まれてくる世代が幸福を享受できるように、その代価として我々は屍を背負い血の川を渡るのです。
背中を任せるということはいつでも後ろから撃てるということだ。私が道を踏み外したらその手で撃ち殺せ。ついてきてくれるか。
お望みとあらば地獄まで。今はほぼ軍の傀儡となっている議会をあるべき方に戻し、民主制に移行する。軍事国家時代の海を全て絞り出さないとこの国は新しくならない。例えばイシュバール殲滅戦の戦争犯罪人を裁くことになるかもしれない。そう、乱世の英雄は平和の世においてはただの大量殺戮者よ。
大佐はそれを承知で上を目指してんのか。そんなの自滅の道じゃないか。あの内乱の裏で糸を引いていたのはホムンクルスだろう。
原因がホムンクルスだとしても実行したのは私たちよ。死から目を背けてはいけない。殺した人々を忘れてはいけない。なぜなら彼らは殺した私たちのことを決して忘れないから。
Certainly left an impact or made an impact back then.
鎧さん、いろいろ助けていただいてありがとうございます。エルリック。
エドワード・エルリックっていたでしょ。小さい錬金術師。
あれの弟ってことはあれにそっくりなのかしら。
ちっけえな。兄さんよりうんと身長高いに決まってるだろ。顔だってあんなにきつくないし、喧嘩だって兄さんすごいジェントルマンさ。
New crush.
早く体が戻るといいですね。
Okay.
マルコ先生、
おう
ご飯ですよ。あれ、静かだね。またイシュバールのこと思い出して泣いてんの？
Whoa. Jeez. Yeah. Okay, episode 30. Yeah. It's certainly a significant episode of the story of the series. It's been building up to this point for some time now. Though, of course, you know, it's not as if it's the first time I'm getting some of this. In fact, I know quite a bit, right? Over the span of those 30 episodes, I did get, you know, pieces of the puzzle. More than enough to know that, of course, you know, the things going down during that war, yeah, it's a travesty, right? It's the atrocities are unforgivable, right? And, you know, a thing that this episode really reiterates is that there is a sense of responsibility that, you know, that these people, they do want to be held accountable for their actions, for their unforgivable actions. And, you know, even though it's not the first time, because at this point the audience should, you know that, of course, these characters that all of us like so much, yeah, you know, it's complicated. It's not as simple as, oh, you know, they must have had a reason. Oh, they're just following orders. No, you know, that whole concept of just following orders, yeah, that parallel is certainly there as well in this, right? The Nuremberg trials, it does add on to that goal, that ultimate goal of theirs, right? It's a combined effort for sure, you know? It might have seemed like it's a Roy Mustang thing and that Riza Hawkeye is this dedicated soldier, you know, that is all in for the cause and that is a right-hand man type individual. But no, it's larger than that, you know, because Roy Mustang and Riza Hawkeye are connected so much more than I had thought, right? And this episode really shines a light on that through that really interesting backstory. And of course, you get to see a youthful, you know, perhaps naively optimistic Roy Mustang. Though, of course, that's not always a negative, right? But you see that Master Hawkeye, who appears to be a brilliant man, right? A great man. Though, of course, as all of us know, a lot of times great men don't end up being good fathers, right? And you see a case of that here as well. I mean, of course, he cares for his daughter, Riza Hawkeye, and he even asked Mustang to look after her on his deathbed, essentially. He died in Roy Mustang's arms. I mean, the connection here goes so far back, and it's so deep, isn't it? Hawkeye and Mustang. But the fact that he put such a burden on her, literally on her back, it's questionable, to say the least. And it's interesting, the concept of kind of hiding that research, right? Because you see that he is a man of principle. I like that about him for sure, right? He's been around. He's an old head, and this flame alchemy that he believes has been perfected, right? And you have to believe him, right? He clearly seems like an intelligent man, a brilliant man. You see that he is afraid of the blueprint, or just the flame alchemy itself, the possibility of it falling into the wrong hands. That is a concern of his. And the wrong hands, he is also thinking about the military. In fact, that might be the first thing he's thinking about, because if the military gets their hands on this, yeah, it can be devastating. And if he was alive to see that Roy Mustang goes on to play a part in Ishvalan, using that flame alchemy in that manner, he must have been so disappointed. But of course, it is complicated. Roy Mustang and his choice, right? Let's not forget his choice to kind of continue on that path. But I love that 30 episodes in, nearly the midpoint, right? A few episodes from the midpoint, I'm getting new information about the nature of Roy Mustang's alchemy, his flame alchemy, right? And the connection to the Hawkeyes. I mean, the Hawkeyes are facilitating it, right? They are the source. I mean, if you go back to Sensei Hawkeye, he believes it to be the strongest, most powerful alchemy, the most devastating. And the usage of it is something that he was really concerned over. I was even starting to think about Oppenheimer at that moment. But of course, Riza does build that trust. She does have that trust in Hawkeye. And you see that, their idealism kind of brings them together, a long time ago. And then you see the different stages of their dynamic and their relationship, right? As they kind of go up the ranks. And I love that concept of them watching over each other, or watching each other's backs. Literally, he had to study Riza Hawkeye's back. And you see that there is some scarring there, and I thought there was a great transition. Of course, the hair is an indicator in terms of, flashback, back to present time. I thought, there's a lot of great transitions here, because it does use two distinct perspectives, right? One from Dr. Marco as a scientist, and the things he did and regrets, and ultimately kind of dies full of regret, by the end there, or, in the post-credit scene, Scar does end up killing him. Of course, there's a few reasons. Maybe a part of it is a bit of mercy killing as well, but, there's certainly a lot of anger there. Vengeance is certainly on the mind, that's for sure. But also, by taking on Marco, he is kind of potentially slowing down, Father and the Sins and their whole grand plan. Ultimately, I'm not sure how much of a stumbling block it's going to end up being, Dr. Marco's death. But yeah, that is quite the jarring sight at the end. It is. I feel like the moment Dr. Marco, tells him about the Philosopher's Stone, right? And how it was used, and that it was kind of used against them as well, right? By gifting it, or kind of allocating it to the scene stealing Kimberly. Oh my goodness, as you guys can tell by now, anytime I see Kimberly, I'm always kind of like, come on, all right. I'm hoping for more of Kimberly, right? I mean, this is the first really significant episode and focus on Kimberly, and I've got to say, man, that is a fascinating character. That is an intriguing character. And, in that sense, there's a lot of philosophy on display throughout this episode, or a lot of different beliefs and different philosophies, right? Be it through Master Hawkeye, right? Be it through, again, Kimberly, be it through Riza Hawkeye, and how she kind of develops and kind of understands and takes from others as well, right? Takes these lessons in. You see that encounter, with Kimberly, and Kimberly keeping it real. You need people like this. You need people like this sometimes. You see, once he starts spitting, there's no retort from Mustang. There's no, retort from Hawkeye, because they know there is a semblance of truth in the things he's saying to them, right? You see that this man just hates or despises hypocrisy, right? And he's seeing it on display, and he had to call them out on it, right? He's a no bullshit kind of guy. I mean, he's batshit crazy. Let's not beat around the bush. He's a psycho. He is, but these types of characters are so juicy, man. They really are, because they're so fascinating. Their philosophies are so fascinating, as showcased through Kimberly in this episode. I mean, this man is poetic, right? He's psychotic, but he is poetic. This agent of chaos that even, I guess King Bradley or, that side had to kind of lock up, because the first time I see him, he is locked up, right? And the last time I saw him, he is locked up. I suppose, maybe they mentioned it back in episode 1, but that was a long time ago, folks. And, there's been a few breaks in there in the middle. So maybe they mentioned it, maybe he killed their own soldiers, something along those lines, that maybe he is a bit too unpredictable even for them, right? But you see that Hawkeye certainly took a lesson from that. Yes, maybe her, perspective on it isn't as twisted as Kimberly's, right? But she certainly took a lesson from that. And you see that she shares that lesson with Ed, right? Though, of course, I mentioned the different philosophies. You see Ed's pacifist stance is certainly on display here as well. But the thing is, Ed, whose naive nature is certainly on display here a few times in the conversation. And it's a lovely scene. It's a great scene, Hawkeye and Ed. You see just how comfortable he is around her, that he is able to open up, right? And of course, Hawkeye, Riza, she's been really lovely to the Elric brothers since they met, right? She's really quite sensitive towards them, quite understanding, quite helpful. She does have this guardian figure aura about her anytime she's around them. And I love that he feels at ease around her, right? Of course, it's not the same anytime he's around Mustang, but Hawkeye, it's a bit different. And it continues to kind of lean into that aspect of him having a lot of strong female presence in his life, right? You go back to his mother, Trisha. You go to Izumi Sensei. You go to Grandma. You go to Riza Hawkeye, right? That male, father figure has been missing. Of course, it's been missing for Alphonse as well. But then you see through characters like Mustang, Hughes, of course, totally different approaches. There is an element of that as well. Guardian figures looking over these brothers. But to me, it's always kind of felt like he's much more at ease and comfortable around a female presence, right? I think that certainly comes from his upbringing, right? Trisha, only mother. I mean, they did have Hohenheim in their life for a certain amount of time, but they were far too young around that time. I mean, they're still young, but you get the point. But going back to that conversation and some of that naive nature on display, you see just how shocked and upset he is, right? Upset in the sense that, he's sad, that these people that he's come to kind of care for and kind of look up to, right? Some of these grown-ups. And, you see he immediately starts looking for justifications. No, it was the homunculi. You see, it was the homunculi. It wasn't Colonel Mustang. But yeah, Riza Hawkeye, straight shooter. She is not hiding behind justifications. None of that. I was just, following orders. None of that. I mean, she considers themselves war criminals, and if things go according to plan, she wants everyone to be on trial, of course, including herself. And Roy Mustang, wants that as well, of course. So, to hear that, to see, to kind of have someone like Riza Hawkeye kind of admit to this and kind of lay that plan out, of course that hits him. It hits him hard, and that is. But yeah, it's not sugarcoating anything here. It's not. These characters that all of us like so much have blood on their hands. And now, you see that Scar has taken out a lot of those state alchemists, and I see some of them. I saw 2 of them, actually. The guy who ends up, the Monopoly-looking dude who has that peg leg, and now I guess I kind of get to see how that happened. I see the other guy, God damn it, can't remember the name. But yeah, he's another one that Scar got to and killed. I'm sure there's other cameos there as well, that I just kind of missed or didn't recognize. But it's always cool to see these cameos, right? Even though it is under really harsh conditions. And listen, at one point there was just no reaction anymore because it got so tough to watch. You know, at one point you see Armstrong, you know, and they alluded to this in the last episode as well, just how difficult it was for him, right? He can hear on the other side of that wall, boxing them in, and kind of listening as they get executed. Oof, nightmarish. That's nightmare fuel for Armstrong. I'm sure that just kind of spins in his mind, runs through his mind nonstop every single day. As he mentioned, you know, every single day since, I've been ashamed of myself. You know, at that point, as they're getting executed, boxed in, and then getting stabbed, I got a little emotional, man, seeing that, because it is a parallel to real things that have happened, right? And then it becomes a really tough thing to watch, doesn't it? Even if it is animated. But I have to say, I am a little bit disappointed in terms of the depiction of the Ishvalan people. I mean, you know, they've stated that the war goes on for 7 years, so of course they are formidable, right? But I didn't like that it wasn't depicted in this episode. In fact, I think it looks like that flashback is done, that backstory aspect of it is done and wrapped up by the end of this episode. I was kind of hoping for like a 2-episode thing. You know, I kind of 3 episodes is, you know, definitely too long, but I was hoping for something of like a 2-episode mini arc. I love that moment as Riza starts to kind of tell Ed about this, you know, right at the beginning, describing the place, the rough terrain, the harsh lands that made people, resilient people that are the Ishvalans, right? So I kind of wanted to see them retaliate, right? Kind of see it from their perspective as well. Though I get that. Maybe it was episode 22, right? Scar's flashback. I see a bit of that. So yeah, I'm really interested in seeing how the story, or how Arakawa kind of handles the accountability aspect of this by the end of the story, perhaps. Yeah, and you know, another thing I really liked about this episode is the focus on the eyes, you know, the eyes of a killer. And there, you know, there's a bit of a heartbreaking moment for Roy Mustang as he sees Riza Hawkeye, you know, walking up that hill, and he sees the same look in her eyes. At one point, it was starting to feel like it's this out-of-body experience for Hawkeye, right? That she is beginning to disassociate, right? That she is going numb through all of this, and that's how she kind of coped. Let me go back and finish my point about them watching each other's backs. You know, Roy Mustang asking her to shoot him in the back if he dares to deviate from the goal at hand, from the task at hand. And listen, I'm sure there might actually be a moment at some point in the series that he might have a gun pointed at him by Riza Hawkeye. I could see something like that happening, right? You know, it's a high stakes situation, and it's going to escalate again, right? And the next time it escalates, it's going to be some crazy shit, right? So yeah, I could see something like that, you know, a tense situation like that coming up at some point. But you know, going back to her back, you know, I mentioned the scarring. I think I mentioned the scarring. Now I'm not sure if that is before. I mean, surely it can't be before, because if it was before, then Mustang is not going to have the complete blueprint, I suppose I can call it that, the research. So maybe that's after, right? Maybe it was like a decision that they came to together, or maybe Hawkeye suggested, you know, to burn it, or I don't know. You know, there's some scarring there on the upper left, and did it not also kind of resemble or have a resemblance to Scar's ink, right? There are some similarities there, I thought. In terms of kind of like the outlines, and almost kind of looking like a snake, right? Or the body of a snake, or the scaling of it, at least. And, you know, speaking of Scar, who is potentially the Hammer of God, as he was set up in that manner around the time he first came onto the scene in the story, right? King Bradley mentions the Hammer of God in that scene. Jesus, man. You know, every time King Bradley's on screen, intriguing character, man. That is quite the moment, isn't it? Inside that tent. And then I saw Hughes in the background there as well. So I'm not sure if there's more to this, if there's more, you know, story behind all of this, them getting to this point. But yeah, you know, the life of one man is just that. It's one life, nothing less or nothing more, right? You know, the thing is, the interesting thing is the people that are inside that tent, to them, you know, it might sound like something else entirely, but us as the audience knows, right, that given, you know, their take on humanity or humans, and by their take I mean sins, or the sins, and father. It's a totally different perspective from King Bradley. Essentially how useless just one human life is to them. And speaking of lives, yeah, I see the makeup or the construction of a Philosopher's Stone, and these Ishvalans that are kind of sacrificed or utilized, or lives thrown away to make that one Philosopher's Stone. Again, given to Kimberly, because I suppose he's the one mad enough to actually make proper use of it in their eyes. Yeah, it's a horrifying scene, isn't it? And you see Dr. Marco, he's struggling quite a bit, but he is there nonetheless. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that's all the Ishvalans it took to make that Philosopher's Stone. Maybe, off screen they had a bunch more before that, but maybe it is. Maybe, that's a smaller scale Philosopher's Stone. That was kind of giving Kimberly that, extra bit of spice, a bit of an add-on to his abilities. And he is devastating, and I've noticed that his alchemy, I suppose this makes sense now, because he was using the Philosopher's Stone. The light that it emits, or the color it gives off, it's red, right? So that makes sense. It makes sense now. Listen, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm damn excited to see Kimberly again and his role in the rest of the story. And in terms of a surface level assessment, it's a damn cool looking character design, isn't it? And it's a damn cool sounding character as well. I mean, the voice acting is just, top notch, top tier stuff across the board in this episode. I've been so impressed by it. Listen, I get that the dub is like the preferred method to watch this for many, but listen, I think people are missing out here. I think people are really missing out here because, through the comments, and it became really clear to me that most people have not seen the sub, that they've exclusively only checked out the dub, right? And it's always been the dub for them, and they have no interest in checking out the sub. So I feel like they're missing out. I know people say, oh, you're missing out by not watching the dub. I think the opposite as well, right? I think people are missing out by not experiencing the sub or the original Japanese voice acting, rather. And, and going back to the conversation, Ed and Riza Hawkeye, there's a bit of a wholesome moment, bit of a lovely moment, as she tells him, because, she could see it, right? Clear as day. She can read him like a book. She knows that he cares for this girl, that he loves her. And she implores him to, continue looking after her. And, of course, that immediately reminded me of episode 2, iconic episode, of course. But there's that one scene as she is asked by Winry about, becoming a soldier, the reasoning behind it. And of course, her response, because she wanted to protect someone. Of course, the person she wants to protect is Roy Mustang, who walks in. So yeah, I've got to say, I really appreciate this subtle take or approach that Arakawa has taken for the dynamic that, or the relationship that Riza Hawkeye and Roy Mustang have. And I think that moment she kind of tells Ed, oh, you love her, right? To me, it even kind of feels like Hawkeye indirectly kind of telling us about her own feelings, right? So that's the thing I was talking about here, the subtle approach to it, right? It's indirect, kind of subtext almost, but it's there. And I think it's a great approach for these two characters, Hawkeye and Roy Mustang. And then you also have Hughes. Now, Hughes is really an interesting one, isn't he? His response to Mustang was so interesting, right? And so realistic and simple. I don't want to die. There is someone back home that he needs to get back to, right? And the thought of that is kind of giving him the fuel to get through this, right? Now, maybe there is a bit of a commentary here in terms of his selfish nature as well, perhaps, as he's kind of hoping to get back to his loved one, he's a part of something that is taking so many loved ones from each other, right? Spouses, children, all of them dying around them. But, it's tunnel vision. But yeah, that's quite the episode, isn't it? It's an important one for the series. Listen, like I said, maybe it was not as detailed as I was expecting it to be, unless, of course, there is more to it. But, given the presentation of it and that ending, it felt like maybe that's a wrap on it. But still, I think it still did a fantastic job of depicting the horrors of war. But yeah, if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in early access, and there should be about 3 episodes of early access at this point. Consider checking that out if you're interested, perhaps full length. If you are, there's links in the description and pinned comment, also links to social media if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is, and I appreciate it that you're giving me your time. And I do hope to see you again soon for the next one. Until then, take it easy.